March 1943. Camp Concordia, Kansas. A German U-boat officer stood in the mess line of a prisoner of war camp, surrounded by 300 captured submariners. He had spent 2 years at sea, eating black bread, turnips, and tinned meat when supplies allowed. On his metal tray sat 2 fried eggs, bacon, white bread with butter, and fresh milk. According to post-war interviews archived at the National Archives, he refused to eat it. He believed it was a trick that Americans were fattening prisoners before interrogation, or worse. He was wrong about everything. Between 1942 and 1946, the United States held over 425,000 German prisoners of war in more than 500 camps across the country. Records from the War Department's Prisoner of War Operations Division document a consistent pattern. German POWs arrived expecting deprivation and left having experienced abundance they had never known. This transformation did not occur through propaganda or persuasion. It happened 3 times a day, in mess halls from Texas to Montana, when prisoners sat down to meals that exceeded what German civilians had eaten since 1939. The food served in American POW camps became one of the most powerful psychological tools of the war, not by design, but by the simple fact of American agricultural and industrial capacity. What follows is the documented account of how German prisoners confronted American abundance. Drawn entirely from War Department records, prisoner interviews, and camp documentation held in the National Archives. The Geneva Convention of 1929 established clear standards for prisoner of war treatment. Article 11 stated that the daily food ration for prisoners shall be equivalent in quantity and quality to that of the detained Powers Depot troops. The United States Army followed this standard precisely. German POWs received the same rations as American soldiers stationed at U.S. bases. According to the U.S. Army's official menu records from 1943, a standard weekly ration for troops in the continental United States included 7 pounds of fresh meat, beef, or pork, 3 dozen eggs, 14 pints of fresh milk, fresh vegetables including potatoes, carrots, onions, and cabbage, fresh fruit, white bread baked daily, butter, coffee, and sugar. German rations during the same period, documented by Wehrmacht supply records, told a different story. By 1943, German soldiers at the front received approximately 700 grams of bread, often mixed with sawdust or potato flour, 300 grams of potatoes, and 120 grams of meat per day when supplies were available. Fresh eggs, butter, and milk had become rarities, even for frontline troops. German civilians received far less. Ration cards in Berlin, preserved in German Federal Archives, show that by early 1943, each civilian received 250 grams of meat per week, 1 egg per week when available, and 2,000 grams of bread. Fresh milk was reserved for children under 6 years old. When German prisoners arrived at American camps and saw their first meal, many believed they were being prepared for propaganda photographs. Then the meals continued, day after day, without interruption. The first large groups of German POWs arrived in the United States in 1943, following the North Africa Campaign. Camp inspections conducted by the International Red Cross and documented in their 194-31945 reports provide detailed accounts of prisoner conditions and reactions. At Camp Alva, Oklahoma, Red Cross Inspector Hans Sen recorded his observations in May 1943. The camp held 3,000 German prisoners captured in Tunisia. Sen noted, prisoners expressed repeated astonishment at the quality and abundance of food. Many stated they had not seen such meals since before the war began in 1939. Camp commanders faced an unexpected problem in the first weeks. Prisoners refused to believe the food would continue. Many hoarded bread in their barracks, expecting rations to be reduced once the initial propaganda effort ended. Major Maxwell McKnight, commander of Camp Hearne, Texas, filed a report with the Provost Marshal General's office in June 1943 documenting this behavior. His report stated, "Despite repeated assurances, prisoners continue to stockpile bread and other items. Inspections reveal significant food waste from hoarding. Medical staff reports concern about vermin attraction. The hoarding stopped after 6 weeks, when prisoners accepted that the meals were permanent. The morning meal, documented in camp menu records, typically included eggs, scrambled or fried, bacon or sausage, oatmeal or cream of wheat, toast with butter and jam, fresh fruit when available, coffee with milk and sugar. Lunch offered soup, sandwiches with meat, vegetables, and dessert, often cake or cookies, baked in camp kitchens. The evening meal, the largest of the day, included a meat course: roast beef, pork chops, fried chicken or fish with potatoes, 2 vegetables, bread, butter, and dessert. These meals were not exceptional. They were standard, documented in weekly menu reports that camp commanders submitted to the War Department's Prisoner of War Division, now archived in Record Group 389 at the National Archives. Fresh eggs became a recurring symbol in prisoner accounts. Multiple post-war interviews reference eggs specifically, more than any other food item. Werner Burkhardt, a Luftwaffe pilot shot down over England in 1942 and transferred to Camp Ruston, Louisiana in 1943, gave an interview to the Library of Congress Veterans History Project in 1998. He stated, "The first breakfast, they gave us 2 eggs. 2. I thought it was a mistake. In Germany, we had egg cards, 1 egg per person per week, if the store had any. Here they gave us 2 eggs every morning like it was nothing." American egg production during World War II reached unprecedented levels. U.S. Department of Agriculture statistics show that American farms produced 60 billion eggs in 1943. The military purchased approximately 3 billion eggs that year for troop consumption. German egg production, devastated by feed shortages and farm labor depletion, fell to approximately 2 billion eggs annually by 1943, serving a population of 70 million people under strict rationing. The contrast was not lost on prisoners. Many came from German farms themselves and understood agricultural production. Pierre Gärtner, who escaped from Camp Deming, New Mexico in 1945 and lived in the United States under a false identity until 1985, gave extensive interviews after his voluntary surrender. He stated, "I grew up on a farm in Bavaria. By 1942, we had no feed for chickens. We slaughtered most of them. In America, they had eggs everywhere, mountains of eggs. I could not understand how they did it. The answer lay in American agricultural mechanization and scale." U.S. Department of Agriculture reports from 1943 document that American farms operated more than 1.5 million tractors. Germany had approximately 60,000 tractors for all agricultural purposes. American chicken farms, particularly in the Midwest and South, had industrialized egg production with specialized breeding, feed formulation, and distribution networks. German agriculture, stripped of machinery, fuel, and labor for the war effort, could not compete. Food preparation in POW camps followed strict Army regulations. Camp inspection reports reveal the scale of these operations. Camp Concordia, Kansas, one of the largest POW facilities, held up to 4,000 prisoners. Kitchen records from 1944, preserved in the Kansas State Historical Society archives, show daily consumption figures: 800 pounds of meat, 1,200 loaves of bread baked on site, 500 pounds of potatoes, 300 pounds of fresh vegetables, 200 pounds of butter, 50 gallons of milk. These quantities were delivered daily to camp kitchens. Food shipments came from military supply depots, which purchased from civilian contractors. The entire system operated without disruption throughout the war. German prisoners, particularly those with kitchen duty, witnessed this supply chain firsthand. Reinhold Pavel, who escaped from Camp Concordia in 1945 and wrote a memoir titled "Enemies Are Human," published in 1955, described his experience working in the camp kitchen. Supply trucks arrived like clockwork. The American sergeant never worried about running out of food. I asked him once what he would do if supplies stopped coming. He looked at me like I was crazy. He said, "Why would they stop?" In Germany, we worried about food every day. The contrast extended beyond quantity to variety. Camp menu records show rotating selections designed to prevent monotony. A sample week from Camp Alva, October 1943, documented in War Department records. Monday, beef pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, bread, butter, apple pie. Tuesday, fried chicken, rice, carrots, bread, butter, chocolate cake. Wednesday, pork chops, boiled potatoes, cabbage, bread, butter, sugar cookies. Thursday, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, peas, bread, butter, vanilla pudding. Friday, fried fish, French fries, coleslaw, bread, butter, lemon cake. Saturday, beef stew, potatoes, onions, bread, butter, fresh fruit. Sunday, roast beef, mashed potatoes, corn, bread, butter, ice cream. This menu would have been unremarkable to American civilians, even under wartime rationing. To German prisoners, it represented abundance beyond their experience. German POWs in American camps received better nutrition than German civilians in Germany, and in many cases, better than German soldiers at the front. This fact was not propaganda, it was documented reality. The International Red Cross, a neutral organization, conducted regular inspections of both Allied and Axis POW camps throughout the war. Their comparative reports, published in 1948, provide objective data. Average daily caloric intake in U.S. POW camps, 3,500 to 4,000 calories. Average daily caloric intake for German civilians in 1943, 1,800 to 2,000 calories. Average daily caloric intake for Allied POWs in German camps, 1,200 to 1,500 calories. These figures come from Red Cross dietary assessments based on camp inspections and food sampling. Letters from German POWs to families in Germany, censored and reviewed by U.S. military intelligence, frequently mention food. Camp postal records at the National Archives contain thousands of these letters. A letter from a prisoner at Camp Trinidad, Colorado, dated August 1943, censored but preserved in Record Group 389, stated, "We eat better here than you do at home. I feel guilty writing this, but it is the truth. We have meat every day and fresh vegetables. Please do not worry about me. I am well fed." Military censors noted the frequency of such statements and reported patterns to the War Department's Morale Operations Branch. A classified report from December 1943 observed, prisoner correspondence consistently references food quality and abundance. This appears to be having a measurable effect on prisoner cooperation and attitude toward American captivity. The psychological impact was significant. German prisoners, raised under Nazi propaganda depicting America as a failing plutocracy on the verge of collapse, confronted daily evidence that contradicted everything they had been told. Beyond food, American POW camps provided access to items German prisoners had never experienced or had not seen in years. Coca-Cola became particularly symbolic. The soft drink, unavailable in Germany during the war, was sold in camp canteens where prisoners could purchase items with camp scrip earned through labor. Camp Canteen records from Camp Hearne, Texas, preserved in the Texas State Archives, show that in September 1944, the canteen sold 2,400 bottles of Coca-Cola, 1,800 candy bars, 900 packs of cigarettes, and various other items to a prisoner population of 3,000. These were not luxuries provided by the U.S. government. Prisoners purchased them with money they earned working on farms, in food processing plants, or in camp maintenance. Geneva Convention rules allowed prisoners to be employed in non-military labor with wages paid in camp currency. The existence of a functioning canteen economy, where prisoners could purchase consumer goods, demonstrated a level of material abundance that had disappeared from Germany years earlier. Hans Lammersdorf, a captured German paratrooper, gave an oral history interview to the Eisenhower Center in 1994. He recalled, "In the canteen, you could buy things, real things. Coca-Cola, chocolate, soap, toothpaste, cigarettes. I bought a Coca-Cola the first week. I had never tasted it before. I thought, how can they have this in a prison camp? We don't have this in Germany at all, and we are supposed to be winning the war." This observation, that prisoners in America had access to consumer goods unavailable to German civilians, recurred in multiple post-war accounts. The contradiction was impossible to ignore. The food served in American POW camps was not designed as psychological warfare. It was simply the standard ration provided to U.S. military personnel stationed in the continental United States, extended to prisoners as required by the Geneva Convention. But its effect was profound. German prisoners returned to Germany after the war with first-hand knowledge of American material capacity. They had not been told about American abundance. They had lived it, 3 meals a day, for months or years. Post-war surveys conducted by U.S. military intelligence among repatriated German POWs, declassified in 1973, revealed significant shifts in attitude. When asked about American economic and industrial capacity, 78% of surveyed former POWs stated that American productive capability exceeded what they had been told by German propaganda. 64% stated that their experience in American camps had changed their view of the United States. These were not converts to American democracy or capitalism. They were soldiers and sailors who had simply witnessed an economic reality that contradicted everything they had been taught. The meals served in American POW camps, eggs, meat, fresh bread, milk, butter, and coffee, represented more than nutrition. They were tangible evidence of a system that could feed not only its own population and military, but also hundreds of thousands of enemy prisoners, without strain or shortage, while simultaneously supporting Allied forces across 2 oceans. German prisoners mocked American food when they first saw it because they could not believe it was real. Then they ate it every day until they went home. That experience, documented in thousands of letters, interviews, and official reports, could not be erased by propaganda or ideology. It remained a simple, verifiable fact. They had seen what America could produce, and they had eaten it.